Maria Santos wiped her hands on her apron for the 10th time that morning. The breakfast rush at Santos Family Restaurant was always crazy, but today felt even worse. Coffee cups clinked against plates as she carried 3 orders to table 5. Her back hurt from bending over tables all morning. She was only 17, but some days she felt much older. The restaurant belonged to her parents. They had worked their whole lives to buy this small place in Queens, New York. The walls were painted yellow, but the paint was old and chipped in some places. The floor made squeaking sounds when people walked on it. But the food was good and people kept coming back. Maria had been working here since she was 14. Every day after school, she put on her apron and helped serve customers. On weekends, she worked from morning until night. The money she made went into a special jar in her bedroom. She was saving for college. "Maria, table 3 needs more coffee," her mother called from behind the counter. Her mother, Rosa, had thick black hair that she always kept in a bun. Her hands moved fast as she wrote down orders and counted money. "Coming, Mama," Maria replied. She grabbed the coffee pot and walked to table 3. The man sitting there was reading a newspaper. He looked up and smiled when she poured his coffee. "Thank you, dear," he said. "This is really good coffee." "My mother makes it fresh every hour," Maria told him. She was proud of her family's restaurant, even though the work was hard. After the man left, Maria walked to the back room to take a short break. This was her favorite part of the restaurant. In the corner sat an old piano. The wood was dark brown and scratched in many places. Some of the keys stuck when you pressed them. But it still made music. Maria had found this piano 3 years ago. In a yard sale, the woman selling it wanted $50. Maria had saved her tip money for 2 months to buy it. Her father helped her move it to the restaurant. "Why do you want this old thing?" her father had asked. "I don't know," Maria had said. "I just like how it looks." Now, Maria sat on the small bench in front of the piano. She pressed middle C with her finger. The sound was soft but clear. She pressed a few more keys, making a simple tune. She had taught herself to play by listening to music on the radio and trying to copy the sounds. The piano helped her feel calm after long days of work. When her feet hurt from standing and her arms were tired from carrying plates, she would sit here and play quiet songs. Sometimes she made up her own tunes. Sometimes she tried to play songs she heard on the radio. "Maria, where are you?" Her father's voice called from the kitchen. "Coming, Papa," she called back. She stood up and smoothed her apron. Her father, Carlos, was cooking lunch orders. Steam rose from the big pots on the stove. He looked tired, like he always did during busy times. "The lunch people will be here soon," he said. "Can you set up the tables?" "Yes, Papa," Maria said. She went back to the dining room and started putting clean forks and knives on each table. This was the same thing she did every day. Sometimes she wondered if she would be doing this forever. The lunch rush was even busier than breakfast. Business people came in wearing nice suits. They ordered quickly and ate fast because they had to get back to work. Maria ran back and forth between tables, taking orders and bringing food. "Excuse me, miss," a woman at table 7 called out. She had gray hair and wore a blue dress. "Could I get some more water, please?" "Of course," Maria said. She brought a pitcher of water and filled the woman's glass. "You work very hard," the woman said. "Are you in school?" "Yes, I'm a senior at Queens High School," Maria replied. "What are your plans after graduation?" The woman asked. Maria paused. This was a question that kept her awake at night. "I want to go to college, but college costs a lot of money." The woman nodded. "Education is important." "I work at the high school as a guidance counselor." "My name is Mrs. Peterson. What's your name?" "Maria Santos," she replied. "Well, Maria, you should come see me at school. There are ways to get help paying for college. Scholarships and grants. You might be surprised what's available." After Mrs. Peterson left, Maria couldn't stop thinking about what she had said. Scholarships. Maria had heard the word before, but she didn't know much about them. Maybe there really was a way to pay for college. That evening, after the restaurant closed, Maria sat at the old piano again. Her parents were in the kitchen, counting the day's money. The dining room was quiet and dark except for one small light above the piano. She pressed the keys softly, playing a sad song she had heard on the radio. The music seemed to fill the empty restaurant. Playing piano was the only time Maria felt like she was doing something just for herself. Everything else she did was for her family or for her future. But music was different. Her fingers moved across the keys, making a melody that sounded like how she felt. Sometimes happy, sometimes sad, sometimes hopeful. She didn't know the names of the notes she was playing. She didn't know about scales or chords or any of the things real piano players knew. She just played what sounded right to her ears. "Maria, it's time to go home," her mother called from the kitchen. "Just a few more minutes, Mama," Maria replied. She wanted to finish the song she was playing. As she played the last notes, Maria made a decision. Tomorrow she would go see Mrs. Peterson at school. Maybe there really was a way to get to college. Maybe her life could be different from what she had always imagined. The next day at school, Maria found Mrs. Peterson's office. The walls were covered with college posters and information about scholarships. Mrs. Peterson smiled when she saw Maria walk in. "I'm glad you came to see me," Mrs. Peterson said. "Sit down and let's talk about your future." They talked for an hour about Maria's grades, which were good, and her work at the restaurant, which showed she was responsible. Mrs. Peterson told her about different colleges and how to apply for financial aid. "There's something else I want to tell you about," Mrs. Peterson said. "The Queen's Music Conservatory has a scholarship program. They're looking for students who show musical talent but haven't had formal training." "Musical talent?" Maria asked. "I don't have any musical talent. Don't you play piano?" Mrs. Peterson asked. Maria was surprised. "How did you know that?" "Yesterday at the restaurant, I heard you playing in the back room. It sounded beautiful." Maria felt her face get warm. "I just play for fun. I'm not a real piano player." "Music doesn't have to be perfect to be real," Mrs. Peterson said. "Would you be interested in auditioning for the scholarship?" Maria's heart started beating fast. A music conservatory? That sounded like something for rich kids who had been taking piano lessons their whole lives. Not for girls who worked in restaurants and played on broken pianos, but something inside her felt excited. What if she could really learn to play piano? What if music could be more than just a way to relax after work? "What would I have to do?" Maria asked. "You would need to prepare a simple piece and play it for the judges," Mrs. Peterson explained. "The audition is in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. That wasn't very long to prepare." But Maria thought about all the hours she spent at the restaurant piano. Maybe she could learn one good song in 6 weeks? "I'll do it," Maria said. Mrs. Peterson smiled. "I think you're going to surprise yourself, Maria." As Maria walked home from school that day, she felt like the world looked different. The same streets, the same buildings, but somehow everything seemed full of new possibilities. Maybe her hands that carried plates and wiped tables could do something else. Maybe they could make real music. That night, she sat at the old piano and played with new purpose. She wasn't just playing to feel better after a long day. She was playing towards something bigger, something that might change her life forever. Maria stood outside the Queen's Music Conservatory, looking up at the tall building. The walls were made of white stone that looked clean and expensive. Big windows reflected the morning sun. She had never been inside a building like this before. Students walked past her carrying black cases. They looked confident and relaxed, like they belonged here. Most of them were wearing nice clothes. Maria looked down at her best dress. It was clean but old. Her mother had bought it for her 2 years ago at a discount store. "Are you here for the scholarship audition?" a girl asked her. The girl had blonde hair and was carrying a violin case that looked brand new. "Yes," Maria replied quietly. "Cool, I'm Jennifer. I've been playing violin since I was 5. What instrument do you play?" "Piano," Maria said. "That's awesome. How long have you been taking lessons?" Maria felt her face get warm. "I haven't taken lessons. I taught myself." Jennifer's eyes got wide. "Really? That's so interesting. I could never imagine learning without a teacher." Maria wanted to disappear. She was already feeling out of place, and now this girl was looking at her like she was some kind of strange animal. They walked into the building together. The inside was even more impressive than the outside. The floor was made of shiny marble. The ceiling was high with beautiful lights hanging down. Music was coming from different rooms. Maria could hear piano music, violin music, and singing. "The audition room is down this hall," Jennifer said. "Good luck." "Thank you," Maria replied. "Good luck to you too." Maria walked down the long hallway. Through open doors, she could see practice rooms with grand pianos. Some had students playing incredibly difficult music. Their fingers moved so fast across the keys that Maria could barely follow them. She found the room where she was supposed to wait. About 20 other students were sitting in chairs, all looking nervous. Some were warming up on small keyboards. Others were reading sheet music. Maria sat in an empty chair and tried to calm down. "Maria Santos," a woman called out. "Here," Maria said, raising her hand. "I'm Ms. Williams. I'll be taking you to meet your instructor today." Maria followed Ms. Williams down another hallway. They stopped at a door with a sign that said, "Professor Chun." Ms. Williams knocked on the door. "Professor Chun? Maria Santos is here." "Come in," a voice called from inside. Professor Chun was a small man with gray hair and glasses. His office was filled with books about music and pictures of famous musicians. A beautiful piano sat in the corner. "Please sit down, Maria," Professor Chun said. His voice was kind but serious. "Miss Williams tells me you're interested in our scholarship program." "Yes, sir," Maria replied. "Tell me about your musical background," he said. Maria took a deep breath. "I don't have much background. I work at my family's restaurant. We have an old piano there, and I taught myself to play." Professor Chun wrote something in a notebook. "How long have you been playing?" "About 3 years," Maria said. "And you've never had formal lessons?" "No, sir." "We couldn't afford lessons," Professor Chun nodded. "I see. Well, let's hear you play something." Maria's hands started shaking. She had practiced one song over and over for the past 2 weeks. It was a simple piece by Mozart that she had found in a used music book. She walked to the piano and sat on the bench. The piano was beautiful. The keys were perfectly white and black, not yellow and chipped like the piano at the restaurant. When she pressed middle C, the sound was clear and rich. She started playing Mozart's sonata in C major. It was a simple piece, but she had worked hard to learn it. She tried to play it exactly like the recordings she had listened to online. When she finished, Professor Chun was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That was very nice, Maria. You have good finger technique for someone who is self-taught." Maria felt a little bit of hope. Maybe she wasn't as bad as she thought. "However," Professor Chun continued, "the scholarship program is very competitive. Most of our students have been studying music since they were very young. They have years of training and experience." The hope in Maria's heart started to fade. "But," Professor Chun said, "we believe in giving opportunities to students with potential. If you're willing to work very hard, we can give you a chance." "I'm willing to work hard," Maria said quickly. "I work hard every day." Professor Chun smiled for the first time. "I can see that. Here's what we'll do. You can join our program, but you'll need to start with very basic pieces. Simple songs to help you learn proper technique and music theory." He walked to a bookshelf and pulled out a thin book. "This contains easy pieces for beginning students. If you can master these, we'll move on to more challenging music." Maria took the book. The cover said, "First Year Piano Studies." She opened it and saw simple songs with easy notes. They looked much easier than the Mozart piece she had just played. "Professor Chun," Maria said, "I think I can play harder music than this." "I'm sure you think you can," he replied. "But there's a difference between playing notes and understanding music. These exercises will teach you the foundation you need." Maria nodded, but inside she felt disappointed. She had hoped to learn beautiful, impressive pieces. These songs looked boring. "Your first lesson will be next Tuesday at 4 p.m., Professor Chun said. "Don't be late. And practice these exercises every day." "Thank you, Professor Chun," Maria said. I won't let you down." As Maria left the building, she felt confused. She was happy to get the scholarship, but she also felt like Professor Chun didn't believe in her. The book of simple exercises felt heavy in her hands. On the subway ride home, she opened the book and looked at the first exercise. It was just scales. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do over and over again. She already knew how to play scales. At the restaurant that evening, Maria showed her parents the book. "This is wonderful, Mia," her mother said. "You're going to learn so much. But look at these songs, Mama," Maria said. "They're so simple. I can already play harder music than this." Her father looked at the book. "Maria, when I learned to cook, I had to start with simple things too. Boiling water, making rice. Before I could make complicated dishes, I had to learn the basics." "But Papa, I've been playing piano for 3 years already." "I don't need to learn how to boil water. Maybe the teacher knows something you don't know," her mother said gently. That night, after the restaurant closed, Maria sat at the old piano. She opened the book and started playing the first exercise. It was so easy that she felt bored after 5 minutes. She closed the book and played some of the songs she had taught herself instead. The music she played was more interesting than the exercises. She could add her own feelings to the songs. When she played sad songs, she could make them sound really sad. When she played happy songs, she could make them sound joyful. But maybe Professor Chun was right. Maybe there were things about music that she didn't understand. She had never learned about music theory or proper technique. Everything she knew came from listening and copying. The next day at school, Maria saw Mrs. Peterson in the hallway. "How did the audition go?" Mrs. Peterson asked. "I got the scholarship," Maria said. "That's wonderful. You must be very excited." "I am," Maria said, but I'm also nervous. The other students have been studying music their whole lives. I feel like I don't belong there." Mrs. Peterson stopped walking and looked at Maria seriously. "Let me tell you something, Maria. The fact that you taught yourself to play piano shows something special about you. Most people need teachers to learn music. You figured it out on your own. But they want me to start with really basic exercises." Maria said. "Good teachers always start with the basics," Mrs. Peterson replied. "Even if you can already play hard pieces, there might be important things you missed by teaching yourself." Maria thought about this. Maybe Mrs. Peterson was right. Maybe she needed to be patient and trust Professor Chun. That Tuesday, Maria arrived at the conservatory 15 minutes early. She didn't want to be late for her first lesson. The building felt less scary now that she had been there before. She found Professor Chun's office and knocked on the door. "Come in, Maria," he called. "Good afternoon, Professor Chun," she said. "Did you practice the exercises?" he asked. "Yes, sir, every day." "Good, let's hear the first one." Maria sat at the piano and played the scale exercise. She played it perfectly, but it felt boring. "Very good," Professor Chun said. "Now, let's talk about what you just played. Do you know why we practice scales?" "To learn the notes," Maria guessed. "That's part of it. But scales also teach your fingers how to move smoothly. They help you understand the relationship between different notes, and they build strength in your hands." Professor Chun sat next to her on the piano bench. "Play the scale again, but this time listen to how each note connects to the next one." Maria played the scale again. This time she tried to listen the way Professor Chun suggested. She noticed things she hadn't heard before. The way one note flowed into the next, the pattern of sounds going up and down. "Do you hear it?" Professor Chun asked. "I think so," Maria said. "Music is like language," he explained. Before you can write poetry, you need to know words and grammar. Scales and exercises are like learning words and grammar for music. Maria was starting to understand. Maybe these simple exercises weren't meant to be boring. Maybe they were meant to teach her things she needed to know. "Now," Professor Chun said, "let's work on the first song in your book." 3 weeks into her lessons at the conservatory, Maria felt frustrated. Every Tuesday she played the same simple exercises for Professor Chun. Every Tuesday he gave her more basic songs to practice. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, happy birthday, ode to joy, with only the melody line. The other scholarship students were already playing much harder pieces. Maria heard them practicing when she walked through the halls. Their music sounded complicated and beautiful. Her music sounded like something a child would play. "You're improving," Professor Chun told her after her fourth lesson. "Your technique is getting much better." "Thank you," Maria said. "But when can I learn more interesting pieces?" "Patience, Maria. Good music foundation takes time to build." But patience was hard when Maria knew she could play harder music. At home, when she sat at the restaurant piano, she still played the songs she had taught herself. They were more exciting than anything in her lesson book. One evening, after a particularly busy day at the restaurant, Maria felt restless. Her parents had gone home, but she stayed behind to practice. The conservatory closed at 9 p.m., so she couldn't practice there. But the restaurant was quiet and empty. She sat at the old piano and opened her lesson book. She played through all the exercises Professor Chun had assigned. They took only 20 minutes. Then she closed the book and started playing other music. First, she played a sad song she had learned from the radio. Her fingers found the notes easily, and she added her own changes to make it sound the way she felt. The music filled the empty restaurant. Then she played a faster song, one that made her think of dancing. Her hands moved quickly across the keys, playing rhythm with her left hand and melody with her right hand. The old piano sounded better than it had in months. As she played, Maria forgot about simple exercises and basic techniques. She forgot about feeling behind the other students. She just played music that came from inside her heart. That was beautiful. Maria spun around, startled. A man was standing by the restaurant door. She hadn't heard him come in. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "We're closed. I was just practicing." "I know you're closed," the man said. "I'm Jim, the janitor for this building. I was cleaning the office upstairs and heard the music." Maria relaxed a little. She had seen Jim before but never talked to him. "I didn't know anyone was still here," she said. "I work late most nights," Jim said. He was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and kind eyes. "I've heard you playing before." "You're really good. Thank you," Maria said. "I'm just learning." "Learning?" Jim laughed. "That didn't sound like learning to me." "That sounded like real music." Jim walked closer to the piano. "I used to play a little bit when I was younger." "Nothing like what you just played, though." "It was just songs I taught myself," Maria said. "Well, you taught yourself pretty well." Jim said, "How long have you been playing?" 3 years, Maria replied. 3 years and you sound like that? That's impressive. Maria felt good hearing Jim's words. At the conservatory, she felt like a beginner. But here, in her own place, she felt like a real musician. "Do you practice here every night?" Jim asked. "Not every night, just when I need to think." "Well, if you want to practice more, I could let you into the conservatory after hours. I clean there too, and I have keys." Maria's eyes got wide. "Really? You would do that?" "Sure, as long as you don't tell anyone." "I'm not supposed to let students in after hours." "I won't tell anyone," Maria promised. "Good, meet me there tomorrow night at 10 p.m., back door." The next night, Maria met Jim at the conservatory's back door. He let her in with his keys, and they walked through the dark halls together. "You can use practice room 5, Jim said. "It has a good piano, and it's far from the street, so no one will hear you." "Thank you so much," Maria said. "Just be quiet, and turn off the lights when you leave. I'll be here until midnight cleaning." Maria went into practice room 5 and turned on the small lamp over the piano. The piano was much better than the one at the restaurant. The keys felt smooth under her fingers, and the sound was rich and clear. She started with the exercises from her lesson book, playing them perfectly. Then she moved on to the simple songs Professor Chun had assigned. She played them exactly the way he had taught her, with good technique and careful finger position, but when she finished the assigned work, she kept playing. She played all the songs she had taught herself over the past 3 years. On this beautiful piano, they sounded amazing. Then she tried something new. She had heard other students practicing a piece by Chopin. It was a waltz, and the melody was so beautiful that Maria had memorized it just from listening. She had never tried to play it before because it seemed too hard, but sitting alone in the practice room, she decided to try. She played the melody, slowly with her right hand, trying to remember how it went. Then she added simple chords with her left hand. It wasn't perfect, but it was recognizable. And it was beautiful. Maria felt a rush of excitement. Maybe she could learn harder pieces on her own. Maybe she didn't have to wait for Professor Chun to give her permission over the next 2 weeks. Maria met Jim at the conservatory every night. She practiced her assigned exercises for 30 minutes, then spent 2 hours working on music she chose herself. She learned the Chopin waltz completely. She figured out a piece by Beethoven that she had heard another student playing. She even tried to play parts of songs from movies and TV shows. The more she practiced on the good piano, the better she got. Her fingers became stronger and more flexible. Her ear became better at hearing complicated harmonies, but she kept this secret from Professor Chun during her lessons. She only played the simple pieces he assigned. She answered his questions about technique and theory. She pretended that the basic exercises were challenging for her. "You're making good progress," Professor Chun said after her 6th lesson. "I think you're almost ready to move on to slightly harder pieces." "Thank you," Maria said. Inside, she was already playing pieces much harder than anything Professor Chun had in mind. "Next week, I'll give you a batch invention. It's a big step up from what you've been playing." Maria nodded and smiled, but she already knew 3 batch inventions. She had learned them during her late-night practice sessions. That night, Maria met Jim at the conservatory as usual. But tonight felt different. She had been thinking about her situation all day. "Jim," she said as they walked to the practice room, "can I ask you something?" "Sure," he replied. "Do you think I'm cheating by practicing here without my teacher knowing?" Jim stopped walking and looked at her. "Cheating? What do you mean?" "Professor Chun thinks I can only play simple songs, but I've been learning harder pieces here at night. I feel like I'm lying to him." Jim was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Maria, let me ask you something. Why do you think your teacher is giving you simple pieces?" "Because he thinks I'm not ready for harder music." "And why does he think that?" Maria thought about it. "Because I'm self-taught? Because I don't have formal training?" "So he's trying to give you the training you missed, right?" "I guess so." "That doesn't mean you can't learn other things too," Jim said. "You have a gift, Maria. You can hear music and understand it in a way that most people can't. That's not something you can learn from a book." They reached the practice room and Maria sat at the piano. "Your teacher is giving you tools," Jim continued. "Good technique, music theory, proper foundation. Those are important. But your musical heart, your ability to make music sound alive, that comes from you?" Maria started playing scales, warming up her fingers. "So I'm not cheating?" she asked. "You're not cheating," Jim said. "You're growing. Keep learning from your teacher, but don't stop being yourself." That night, Maria practiced with new energy. She played her assigned exercises, but she played them with feeling. She made the simple songs sound beautiful by adding her own musical ideas. Then she worked on the harder pieces she had been learning. The Chopin waltz, the Beethoven sonata, the batch inventions. Each piece taught her something new about music. As she played, Maria began to understand something important. Professor Chun was teaching her one kind of musical knowledge, but her heart was teaching her another kind. She needed both. The technical skills Professor Chun showed her made her playing cleaner and more precise. But the musical feeling she brought to the pieces made them come alive. Late that night, as she was getting ready to leave, Maria played one more piece. It was Mozart's Sonata in C major, the piece she had played for her audition. But now she played it differently. She used the good technique Professor Chun had taught her. But she also added her own musical ideas. She made some parts soft and gentle, other parts strong and bold. She played with the rhythm in places, making the music breathe like a living thing. When she finished, Jim was standing in the doorway. "How long have you been listening?" Maria asked. "Just for that last piece," he said. "But that was incredible, Maria. That wasn't the same girl who played simple exercises 6 weeks ago. It was the same song I played for my audition, Maria said. But it wasn't the same music, Jim replied. This time it was really yours. Maria understood what he meant. 6 weeks ago, she had played the notes correctly. Tonight, she had played music. You know what I think? Jim said. What? I think your teacher is going to be very surprised soon. Maria smiled. She was beginning to think Jim might be right. Maria had been meeting Jim at the conservatory for 3 weeks. Every night she practiced the simple pieces Professor Chun assigned her, then spent hours working on harder music. She learned more pieces by Chopin, Bach, and Beethoven. She even started trying to play parts of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. One of the most difficult pieces she had ever heard, the Rachmaninoff was incredibly hard. The left hand had to play complex bass parts while the right hand played beautiful but challenging melodies. Maria couldn't play it perfectly, but she could play enough of it to understand. How amazing it was! She had first heard this piece when another student was practicing it in one of the advanced rooms. Maria had stopped in the hallway to listen. The music was so powerful and emotional that it made her feel like crying and laughing at the same time. That night, she had found a video of the piece online and watched it over and over. The pianist's hands moved like magic across the keys. The music told a story without words. Maria knew she had to learn at least part of it. It took her 2 weeks to figure out the opening section. She played it slowly at first, one hand at a time. Then she gradually put the hands together and sped it up. It wasn't as good as a real professional would play it, but it was recognizable and beautiful. Maria never planned to show this piece to anyone. It was just for her own learning and enjoyment. But sometimes the music felt so good that she forgot where she was. That's what happened on the morning that changed everything. Maria had been working late at the restaurant the night before. They had catered a big party, and she didn't get home until midnight. She was tired when she woke up, but she still wanted to practice before her classes started. She arrived at the conservatory at 7 a.m., an hour before classes began. The building was usually empty at this time. She used her key card to get into practice room 5. The same room where she met Jim every night. She started with her warm-up exercises, playing scales and arpeggios to get her fingers moving. Then she played through the pieces Professor Chun had assigned for her lesson that afternoon, but when she finished the assigned work, she felt like playing something more interesting. The practice room was quiet, and she thought she was alone in the building. So she started playing the opening of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. The music poured out of the piano like water from a broken dam. Maria's left hand played the deep, rolling bass notes while her right hand sang the beautiful melody. She had been working on this piece for weeks, and today it felt better than ever. She closed her eyes and let the music carry her away. She imagined she was performing with a full orchestra, the way real pianists did. In her mind, she could hear the violins and the horns supporting her piano. The music got louder and more intense. Maria's whole body moved with the rhythm. Her hands flew across the keys, playing passages that would have been impossible for her. Just a few months ago, she was so lost in the music that she didn't hear the door open. Professor Chun had arrived early to prepare for his morning classes. He heard piano music coming from practice room 5 and wondered which student was there so early. He opened the door quietly, expecting to see one of his advanced students. Instead, he saw Maria, playing music that should have been far beyond her level. Professor Chun stood frozen in the doorway. This was the same girl who struggled with simple Bach inventions in her lessons. The same girl who was just learning basic music theory. But she was playing Rachmaninoff with passion and skill that he hadn't expected to see from her for years. He listened in amazement as Maria worked through the most difficult passages of the concerto's opening. Her technique wasn't perfect, but her musical understanding was remarkable. She played with feeling and intelligence that couldn't be taught. When Maria finished the section she knew, she opened her eyes and saw Professor Chun standing in the doorway. Her face turned red and she felt like she might be sick. "Professor Chun," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry." I know I'm not supposed to be here this early. Professor Chun walked into the room and closed the door behind him. His face was serious, and Maria couldn't tell if he was angry or surprised. How long have you been able to play Rachmaninoff? He asked quietly. I just learned a little bit of it, Maria said. I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to play pieces like that. Answer my question, Maria. How long have you been working on this piece? About 2 weeks, she admitted. And where did you learn it? Maria looked down at her hands. She didn't want to get Jim in trouble, but she couldn't lie to Professor Chun anymore. I've been practicing here at night, she said. Jim, the janitor, lets me in after hours. I practice my assigned pieces, but then I also work on other music. Professor Chun sat down in the chair next to the piano. He was quiet for a long time, and Maria felt more nervous with each second that passed. Play it again, he finally said. What? Play the Rachmaninoff again. I want to hear it properly. Maria's hands were shaking, but she started the piece again. This time she was nervous, and it didn't sound as good as before. She made a few small mistakes, and her timing wasn't as smooth. When she finished, Professor Chun was still quiet. I'm sorry, Maria said. I know I should have told you that I was practicing other pieces. I know I should have focused only on the exercises you gave me. Maria, Professor Chun said, how did you learn this piece? I found videos online and listened to recordings. I figured out the notes by ear and then practiced until I could play them. You learned Rachmaninoff by ear? Professor Chun asked, double quote. Yes, sir. Is that wrong? Professor Chun stood up and walked to the piano. He sat next to Maria on the bench. Do you know how difficult this piece is? He asked. I know it's hard, Maria said. This is a piece that advanced students work on for months with their teachers. Professional pianists spend years perfecting it. And you learned it in 2 weeks by listening to recordings? Maria nodded. Still not sure if she was in trouble. Maria, why didn't you tell me you could do this? Because you said I needed to learn the basics first. You said I wasn't ready for advanced pieces. Professor Chun took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. You're right, I did say that. And I was wrong. Maria looked at him in surprise. Wrong? I made assumptions about you based on your background. I thought because you were self-taught you would need to start from the very beginning. But I underestimated your natural musical ability. Professor Chun put his glasses back on and looked at Maria seriously. What you just played shows me that you have something that can't be taught. You have an instinctive understanding of music. That is very rare. But I still need to learn proper technique and theory, right? Maria asked. Yes, you do. And that's what I've been trying to teach you. Good technique will make you an even better player than you already are. Music theory will help you understand why the music you play sounds so good. Professor Chun stood up and walked around the room. But I've been holding you back by giving you only simple pieces. You need music that challenges your mind and your heart. So I'm not in trouble for practicing advanced pieces? Maria asked. You're not in trouble, Professor Chun said. But we need to change how we approach your lessons. He sat back down at the piano. From now on, we're going to work on 2 types of music. We'll continue with technical exercises and theory lessons to strengthen your foundation. But we'll also work on challenging pieces that will help you grow as a musician. Maria felt a huge wave of relief wash over her. And Maria, Professor Chun continued, I want you to show me everything you've been learning in your night practice sessions. Don't hide your abilities anymore. Over the next hour, Maria played everything she had learned during her secret practice time. She played the Chopin Waltz, the Bach Inventions, the Beethoven Sonata, and several other pieces she had figured out on her own. Professor Chun listened to each piece carefully. Sometimes he stopped her to show her better fingering or to explain music theory concepts that would help her understand what she was playing. Your musical instincts are excellent, he told her, but I can help you play these pieces even better. Good technique isn't meant to limit your creativity. It's meant to give you the tools to express your musical ideas more clearly. By the time other students started arriving for morning classes, Maria felt like a completely different person. She was no longer hiding part of herself from her teacher. She was no longer pretending to be less capable than she really was. For next week, Professor Chun said, I want you to prepare the first movement of Bach's Italian Concerto. It's challenging, but I think you're ready for it. Thank you, Professor Chun, Maria said. And Maria, he added, thank you for showing me what you're really capable of. You've reminded me that every student is different, and a good teacher needs to adapt to each student's unique gifts. As Maria left the conservatory that morning, she felt like she was floating. The secret was out, and instead of getting in trouble, she had gained a teacher who finally understood her potential. That afternoon, she called Jim to tell him what had happened. I'm not surprised, Jim said. I knew Professor Chun would figure out how special you are eventually. Do you think I can still practice at night sometimes? Maria asked. I think you should ask Professor Chun about that, but I bet he'll say yes. He seems like a smart man. That evening at the restaurant, word spread quickly through the conservatory about Maria's hidden talent. Other teachers started talking about the scholarship student who could play Rachmaninoff by ear. Students whispered in the hallways about the girl who went from simple exercises to advanced pieces in just a few weeks. Maria's lessons with Professor Chun became much more intense. Instead of 30-minute sessions focused on basic exercises, they now met for an hour twice a week. They worked on difficult technical passages, studied music theory, and analyzed the structure of complex pieces. Your natural musical sense is remarkable, Professor Chun told her during one lesson. But now we need to develop your technical skills to match your musical understanding. Maria practiced harder than ever before. She still worked at the restaurant every day after school, but she arranged her schedule so she could practice at the conservatory for 2 hours every evening. Jim no longer needed to let her in secretly. Professor Chun had given her official permission to use the practice rooms after regular hours. The other scholarship students began to notice Maria's rapid progress. Some were encouraging and friendly. Others seemed jealous of the attention she was getting from the faculty. It's not fair, Maria heard one student say to another. She's only been here for 2 months, and she's already playing pieces that took me 2 years to learn. Maria tried not to let comments like that bother her, but sometimes they made her feel bad. She worked just as hard as everyone else, maybe harder. But she was starting to understand that her musical abilities made some people uncomfortable. 3 months after Professor Chun discovered her secret practice sessions, he called Maria into his office for a special meeting. Sit down, Maria, he said. I have something important to discuss with you. Maria sat in the chair across from his desk, wondering if she had done something wrong. The conservatory holds an annual benefit concert every spring, Professor Chun began. It's a big event where wealthy donors come to support our music programs. Professional musicians perform, and we also feature some of our most talented students. Maria nodded, wondering why he was telling her this. This year, the concert committee wants to include a solo piano performance by a student, Professor Chun continued. They've asked me to recommend someone. That sounds like a great opportunity for one of the advanced students, Maria said. Professor Chun smiled. Maria, they want you to perform. Maria felt like the room was spinning. Me? But I've only been here for 3 months. There are students who have been training for years. That's exactly why they want you, Professor Chun explained. Your story is inspiring. A working-class girl who taught herself piano and discovered her talent through our scholarship program. It's the perfect example of what this conservatory can do. But what would I play? Maria asked. I'm not ready to perform in front of important people. Actually, you are ready, Professor Chun said. I've been thinking about this for weeks. I want you to perform Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2. Maria's eyes got wide. She knew this piece. She had heard it in movies and on classical music radio stations. It was one of the most famous and difficult piano pieces ever written. Professor Chun, I can't play that, she said. It's incredibly hard. It is hard, he agreed. But it's also perfect for you. It requires technical skill, but more importantly, it requires passion and musical understanding. Those are things you already have. How long would I have to prepare? 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Maria felt panic rising in her chest. That's not enough time to learn such a difficult piece. Professor Chun leaned forward in his chair. Maria, I wouldn't suggest this if I didn't believe you could do it. You've already proven that you can learn complex music faster than anyone expected. But this is different, Maria said. This isn't just learning a piece for my own enjoyment. This is performing in front of hundreds of people who know music well. What if I make mistakes? What if I embarrass the conservatory? Every performer makes mistakes, Professor Chun said. The question is whether you can make the audience forget about the mistakes because they're so moved by your music. Maria was quiet for a long time, thinking. Part of her was excited by the challenge. The Hungarian Rhapsody was an amazing piece of music, but another part of her was terrified. She had never performed in front of more than a few people. Who would be in the audience? She asked. Donors, board members, local music critics, and families of students and faculty, probably about 500 people. Music critics? Maria's voice got small. Yes, but don't think about them. Think about the music. Think about telling a story through. You're playing. Professor Chun stood up and walked to his piano. He played the opening of the Hungarian Rhapsody. The melody was beautiful and dramatic, full of emotion and power. This piece tells the story of the Hungarian people, he said. It starts with sadness and longing, then builds to celebration and triumph. It's about overcoming struggles and finding joy. As Professor Chun played, Maria could hear the story in the music. She could feel the emotions Liszt had written into every note. It's a perfect piece for you, Maria, Professor Chun said. Your own story is about overcoming struggles and finding triumph through music. What if I say yes and then can't learn it in time? Maria asked. Then we'll find something else for you to play. But I don't think that will happen. I think 6 weeks from now, you're going to give a performance that people will remember for years. Maria took a deep breath. Okay, she said. I'll do it, Professor Chun smiled. Excellent. We'll start working on it in tomorrow's lesson. That evening, Maria told her parents about the concert opportunity. That's wonderful, Mia, her mother said. We're so proud of you, but I'm scared, Maria admitted. What if I'm not good enough? Her father put his hand on her shoulder. Maria, when we opened this restaurant, people said we would fail. They said we didn't know enough about business. But we worked hard and proved them wrong. Music is different from running a restaurant, Papa. No, it's not, he said. Both require hard work, dedication, and believing in yourself. You have all of those things. Maria went. The day of the concert arrived gray and rainy. Maria woke up early, her stomach full of butterflies. She had dreamed about playing piano all night, but in her dreams, she kept forgetting the music and her hands wouldn't work properly. She tried to eat breakfast, but the food tasted like cardboard. Her mother made her favorite eggs and toast, but Maria could only manage a few bites. You need to eat something, Mia, her mother said. You'll need energy for tonight. I can't eat, Maria replied. I'm too nervous. Her father sat down at the kitchen table with his coffee. When I was young, I played soccer. Before big games, I was always nervous too. But my coach told me something I never forgot. What did he tell you, Papa? He said that feeling nervous means you care about doing well. It means what you're doing is important to you. The nervousness shows that your heart is in the right place. Maria thought about this. She was nervous because she wanted to play beautifully. She wanted to make her family proud and show everyone at the conservatory that their faith in her was justified. But what if I mess up? She asked. Then you keep playing, her father said. In soccer, if you miss a shot, you don't stop running. You try again. Maria spent the morning trying to stay calm. She practiced the Hungarian Rhapsody one more time on the restaurant piano, but she kept her playing soft so she wouldn't strain her hands before the performance. The piece felt good under her fingers. All the difficult passages that had seemed impossible 6 weeks ago now felt natural and comfortable. But she still worried about performing it in front of so many people. At 2 p.m., She went to the conservatory for a final rehearsal in the concert hall. This was the first time she would play on the actual piano she would use that evening. The concert hall was much bigger than any room where Maria had performed before. The ceiling was high, with beautiful lights hanging down. Red velvet seats were arranged in rows facing a large stage. The stage looked enormous, an intimidating dot in the center of the stage sat a magnificent black grand piano. It was bigger and more beautiful than any piano Maria had ever seen. The wood was polished so well that she could see her reflection in it. "This is a Steinway Model D," Professor Chun told her. "It's one of the finest concert pianos in the world." Maria walked to the piano and sat on the bench. The keys felt perfect under her fingers, responsive and smooth. When she pressed middle C, the sound filled the entire hall with rich, warm tone. "Play through the piece once," Professor Chun suggested. "Get used to how it sounds in this space." Maria began the Hungarian Rhapsody. The piano was so much more expressive than any instrument she had played before. Every subtle touch of her fingers created beautiful colors and tones. The loud passages were powerful and exciting. The soft passages were delicate and intimate. Playing on this piano was like driving a race car after learning on a bicycle. Everything she did sounded better and more professional. "How does it feel?" Professor Chun asked when she finished. "Amazing," Maria said. "This piano makes everything sound so much better." "Good pianos bring out the best in good players, Professor," Chun replied. "Tonight, this piano will help you tell your story even more clearly." They went over a few technical passages that had been challenging, but on the concert piano, they felt easier. Maria's confidence began to grow. "Remember, Professor," Chun said as they finished the rehearsal, "tonight is about sharing music with people who love to listen. They want you to succeed. They're on your side." That afternoon, Maria went home to rest and get ready. Her mother had bought her a new dress for the performance. It was simple but elegant, black with a modest neckline and sleeves that wouldn't interfere with her piano playing. "You look beautiful, Mia," her mother said when Maria tried on the dress. "Do I look like a real pianist?" Maria asked. "You look like yourself," her father replied. "And that's perfect." At 5 p.m., Maria's family closed the restaurant early so they could all attend the concert. Her parents, her younger brother Miguel, and her Aunt Carmen all piled into their old car to drive to the conservatory. "I can't believe our Maria is performing in a real concert," Aunt Carmen said. "When you were little, I never imagined this." "She always loved music," Maria's mother replied. "Even as a baby, she would calm down when we played the radio." Maria listened to her family talking, but she felt disconnected from the conversation. Her mind was focused on the performance ahead. She went over the piece mentally, reminding herself of the emotional story she wanted to tell. When they arrived at the conservatory, the parking lot was full of expensive cars. Men in suits and women in elegant dresses were walking toward the entrance. Maria felt out of place among all these wealthy, sophisticated people. "Look at all these fancy people," Miguel whispered. "We belong here just as much as they do," Maria's father said firmly. Maria earned her place on that stage. Inside the building, the lobby was crowded with people talking and laughing. Maria could hear conversations about stocks, real estate, and expensive vacations. These were the donors who supported the conservatory with their money. Professor Chun found Maria and her family in the crowd. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Nervous," Maria admitted. "Good, that means you're ready. Come on, let me take you backstage." Maria hugged her family goodbye. "We'll be in the front row," her mother said. "We love you no matter what happens." Backstage was quiet compared to the busy lobby. Other performers were warming up and getting ready. Maria recognized some of the professional musicians who would be performing earlier in the program. "You must be Maria," said a woman with gray hair and a kind smile. "I'm Janet Morrison. I'm performing a violin piece tonight." "It's nice to meet you," Maria replied. "I heard about your story," Janet said. "Self-taught pianist, working at your family's restaurant? That's wonderful. Music needs more people with real-life experience." Maria felt a little better talking to Janet. Here was a professional musician who seemed to think Maria belonged here. "Are you nervous?" Maria asked. "Always," Janet replied. "But I've learned that nerves can actually help your performance. They keep you focused and alert." A man with a clipboard approached them. "Miss Morrison, you're on in 5 minutes." "Maria, you'll be on after the intermission." Maria watched from the side of the stage as Janet performed her violin piece. The audience listened attentively, and when Janet finished, they applauded enthusiastically during intermission. Maria found a quiet corner backstage to warm up her hands and go over the most challenging passages of her piece. Her fingers felt good, relaxed, but ready. "Maria, you're on in 10 minutes, the stage manager told her. This was it. 6 weeks of preparation had led to this moment. Maria took deep breaths and tried to calm her racing heart. Professor Chun appeared beside her. "How are you doing?" "I think I'm ready," Maria said. "You are ready. Remember, once you start playing, trust your musical instincts. Don't overthink it. Just tell the story. What if I forget part of the music? Then you improvise like we practiced." Liszt himself was a great improviser. He would be honored if you made his piece your own. Maria could hear the audience returning to their seats after intermission. The sound of hundreds of people talking and moving around made her realize how many people she was about to perform for. "Maria, it's time," the stage manager said. She walked to the edge of the stage and looked out at the audience. The bright stage lights made it hard to see individual faces, but she could see that every seat was filled. In the front row, she spotted her family. Her mother was wearing her best dress, and her father had put on a tie. Professor Chun walked onto the stage to introduce her. "Ladies and gentlemen, our final performer tonight represents everything we strive for at the Queen's Music Conservatory." 6 months ago, Maria Santos was working in her family's restaurant, teaching herself piano on an old instrument during her breaks. Today, she is one of our most promising students, demonstrating that musical talent and dedication can overcome any obstacle. Please welcome Maria Santos, performing Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2. The audience applauded as Maria walked onto the stage. The lights were bright and warm. The beautiful Steinway piano waited for her in the center of the stage. She sat on the bench and adjusted her position. The keys felt familiar under her fingers now. She looked out at the audience one more time, seeing hundreds of expectant faces. Then she closed her eyes for a moment and thought about the story she was about to tell. A story of sadness transforming into joy, of struggle leading to triumph, of a girl from Queens who discovered that music could change her life. Maria placed her hands on the keys and began to play. The first notes of the Hungarian Rhapsody flowed from Maria's fingers like a gentle stream. The opening melody was soft and melancholy, filled with longing and memory. In that moment, all of Maria's nervousness disappeared. There was only the music and the story she had to tell. The audience, which had been restless during the introduction, became completely still. The beautiful, sad melody seemed to cast a spell over the entire concert hall. Maria played with such genuine emotion that people felt like they were hearing this famous piece for the first time. As she played the opening section, Maria thought about everything that had brought her to this moment. The long hours working at the restaurant, the discovery of the old piano, the nights practicing alone in the empty conservatory. All of those experiences poured into the music, making it deeply personal and authentic. The first section of the Hungarian Rhapsody told the story of the Hungarian people's sadness and exile from their homeland. But under Maria's hands, it also told the story of anyone who had ever felt like an outsider, anyone who had ever dreamed of something bigger than their circumstances. Professor Chun, watching from the side of the stage, felt tears in his eyes. This wasn't just a student performance. This was artistry. Maria moved into the next section, where the music became more animated and hopeful. Her left hand played a steady, rhythmic accompaniment, while her right hand sang out the melody with increasing confidence. She could feel the audience leaning forward in their seats, drawn into the musical story. In the front row, Maria's family watched in amazement. They had heard her practice this piece many times, but tonight it sounded completely different. Tonight, it sounded like the music was coming from her soul. "That's our daughter," Maria's mother whispered to her father, tears streaming down her face. "I can't believe it," her father whispered back. "She sounds like a professional." As the piece continued, Maria's confidence grew. The beautiful Steinway piano responded to every touch of her fingers, creating colors and textures she had never been able to achieve before. She felt like she was painting with sound, creating a masterpiece that existed only in this moment. The music began to build toward the famous fast section that would showcase Maria's technical skills. But first came a dramatic pause, a moment of silence that held the entire audience in suspense. Then Maria launched into the Friska, the wild dancing section that made the Hungarian Rhapsody famous. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, playing rapid scales and arpeggios that sparkled like fireworks. The music was joyful and celebratory, full of life and energy. This was the section Maria had worried about most during her preparation. The technical demands were enormous, requiring perfect coordination between her hands and absolute precision in her fingerwork. But tonight, everything felt effortless. Her months of practice had built the muscle memory she needed, and her musical instincts guided her. Through every challenging passage, the audience began to sit up straighter as they realized they were witnessing something special. This wasn't just a talented student playing a difficult piece. This was a young artist discovering her power, finding her voice through music. Maria played the famous octave passages with thunderous authority. Her hands stretched across the keyboard, playing notes at opposite ends of the piano simultaneously. The sound filled every corner of the concert hall, reverberating off the walls and ceiling. Dr. Williams, the conservatory director, turned to her assistant and whispered, "We need to get this girl into our advanced program immediately. This is extraordinary." In the audience, James Patterson, the music critic from the local newspaper, stopped taking notes and just listened. He had come expecting to write a nice human interest story about a scholarship student. Instead, he was witnessing the birth of a major musical talent. As Maria approached the climax of the piece, the music became even more intense and dramatic. Liszt had written passages that seemed almost impossible to play, requiring the pianist to be an athlete and an artist at the same time. Maria attacked these passages with fearless determination, her hands moving so fast they seemed to blur. The thunderous chords that gave this section its nickname filled the hall with overwhelming sound. Maria put her whole body into these passages, lifting her hands high above the keyboard and bringing them down with tremendous force. Each chord was like lightning striking, brilliant and powerful. The piano sang under her touch, producing sounds that seemed too big to come from one instrument. The bass notes rumbled like distant thunder while the high notes sparkled like stars. Maria had found the perfect balance between technical precision and emotional expression, but this wasn't just about showing off her skills. Every note served the story she was telling. The wild, dancing music represented triumph over adversity, joy breaking through sorrow, the human spirit refusing to be defeated. In the audience, people began to lean forward in their seats. Some had their mouths open in amazement. Others had tears in their eyes. Everyone could feel that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Maria's Aunt Carmen grabbed her husband's arm. "Is that really our Maria up there?" she whispered. "I don't know how, but yes," he replied, shaking his head in wonder. As the piece moved toward its conclusion, Maria played with increasing intensity and passion. The music seemed to lift her out of herself, carrying her to a place where only pure expression mattered. She forgot about the audience, forgot about her nerves, forgot about everything except the story the music was telling. The final section of the Hungarian Rhapsody was like a celebration, a victory dance of someone who had overcome every obstacle. Maria's hands raced across the keyboard, playing passages that would have been impossible for her just months ago. But now they felt natural, like she had been born to play this music. The climax approached, and Maria built the tension masterfully. The music got louder and more intense with each phrase. The audience held their breath, caught up in the musical drama unfolding before them. erupting the final series of thunderous chords, each one bigger and more powerful than the last. Maria's hands came down on the keys with tremendous force, filling the concert hall with sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. The last chord rang out, sustaining in the acoustically perfect hall for what seemed like forever. Maria held her hands on the keys until the very last vibration faded into silence. For a moment, the audience sat in stunned silence. They had just experienced something that transcended a simple student recital. They had witnessed the transformation of a young woman into an artist, the moment when raw talent became refined skill and deep expression. Then the applause began. It started with one person clapping, then two, then suddenly the entire audience was on their feet, applauding wildly. The sound of 500 people clapping and cheering filled the hall with almost as much noise as Maria's playing had. Maria sat at the piano bench, barely able to believe what had just happened. The performance had felt like a dream, like she had been watching someone else play while her body moved on its own. Professor Chun was the first person to reach her on stage. He had tears in his eyes as he hugged her. "Maria, that was incredible," he said. "I have never heard a student performance like that in my entire career." The applause continued for what felt like hours but was actually 7 full minutes. People in the audience were shouting, "Bravo!" and "Encore!" Some were wiping tears from their eyes. Maria's family was crying and cheering in the front row. Her mother had her hands over her heart, overwhelmed by pride and amazement. Her father was applauding so hard, his hands hurt. Dr. Williams came onto the stage and whispered something to Professor Chun, who nodded enthusiastically. "Maria," Professor Chun said, "Dr. Williams wants to talk to you about entering our advanced program immediately. She also wants to discuss performance opportunities." But Maria barely heard him. She was still processing what had just happened. 6 months ago, she had been a girl who played piano alone in the back room of a restaurant. Tonight, she had performed one of the world's most difficult piano pieces in front of hundreds of people, and they had given her a 7-minute standing ovation. As the applause finally began to die down, Maria stood and took a bow. The audience erupted again, even louder than before. James Patterson, the music critic, was frantically writing notes. His review would run in the next day's paper, with the headline, "Unknown Student Delivers Performance of a Lifetime." He wrote, "In 30 years of covering classical music, I have rarely heard a performance that combined such technical brilliance with such deep emotional truth." Maria Santos didn't just play Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody, she inhabited it, made it her own, and shared something profound about the human experience through her music. Backstage after the performance, Maria was surrounded by people wanting to congratulate her. Professional musicians, conservatory faculty, and audience members all wanted to shake her hand and tell her how moved they had been by her playing. "That was absolutely extraordinary," said Janet Morrison, the violinist who had performed earlier. "I've been playing professionally for 20 years, and I've never heard anything quite like that." "You have a gift," said another musician. "Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." 3 different music schools approached Professor Chun about offering. The morning after the concert, Maria woke up feeling like she was living in a different world. Her phone had been ringing all morning with calls from people who had heard about her performance. The local newspaper was on the kitchen table with a large photo of her at the piano, and the headline, "Local Teen's Piano Performance Stuns Audience." Her mother was making breakfast when Maria came downstairs. "There are 3 messages from music schools on the answering machine," her mother said. "And a man from the newspaper wants to interview you." Maria read the review in the paper. The critic had written wonderful things about her performance, calling it a revelation and one of the most moving musical experiences of the year. He predicted that she would have a major career as a professional pianist. "I still can't believe any of this is real," Maria said. "It's real, Mia," her father replied, coming in from opening the restaurant, "and it's just the beginning." Over the next few days, Maria's life changed completely. Dr. Williams called to offer her a full scholarship to the conservatory's advanced program. 3 major music schools sent representatives to meet with her family. A talent manager named Robert Chun, no relation to Professor Chun, flew in from New York to discuss representation. Maria has the potential to be one of the great pianists of her generation, Robert Chun told her parents. With the right training and opportunities, she could be performing with major orchestras within 5 years. But the most exciting opportunity came from an unexpected source. The conductor of the New York Philharmonic had heard a recording of Maria's performance. He was planning a concert series featuring young American talents, and he wanted Maria to be the featured soloist. You would perform Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 with the full orchestra, Professor Chun explained. It's the same piece you were teaching yourself when I first discovered your real abilities. Maria's eyes filled with tears. The Rachmaninoff? With the New York Philharmonic? It would be in 6 months, Professor Chun continued. That gives us time to prepare properly. This is the opportunity of a lifetime, Maria. And the next few months were a whirlwind of intensive preparation. Maria entered the conservatory's advanced program, studying with the most prestigious teachers. She worked with Professor Chun 3 times a week on the Rachmaninoff concerto, learning not just the piano part but how to perform with a full orchestra. Playing with an orchestra is completely different from playing solo, Professor Chun explained. You have to listen to 100 other musicians while maintaining your own musical interpretation. Maria also worked with Robert Chun, who became her manager. He helped her plan her career and arranged for her to perform at smaller venues to gain experience before the big New York performance. Her first professional concert was at a small theater in Philadelphia. Maria was nervous, but as soon as she began playing, all her worries disappeared. The audience gave her a standing ovation, and 3 music critics wrote glowing reviews. Each performance builds your confidence and your reputation, Robert Chun told her. By the time you get to New York, you'll be ready for anything. Maria's family continued to run the restaurant, but now they had hired extra help so they could attend all of Maria's concerts. Her parents traveled with her to performances, proud to watch their daughter living her dreams. Sometimes I pinch myself, her mother said after Maria's concert in Boston. Is this really our little girl who used to practice on that old piano in the restaurant? She's the same girl, her father replied. She just discovered what she was capable of. The weeks leading up to the New York Philharmonic performance were intense. Maria practiced the Rachmaninoff concerto for hours every day, memorizing every note and working with Professor Chun to perfect her interpretation. This concerto is about triumph over struggle, Professor Chun told her. It's the perfect piece for you because it tells your story. Maria also rehearsed with a smaller orchestra to prepare for working with a large group of musicians. Learning to follow a conductor while maintaining her own musical ideas was challenging, but exciting. The orchestra is in your accompaniment, the conductor explained. You're all creating the music together. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow, but you're always listening and responding to each other. 2 weeks before the New York performance, James Patterson, the music critic who had reviewed Maria's conservatory concert, wrote a major feature story about her for a national music magazine. The article was titled From Restaurant to Carnegie Hall, the Maria Santos story. What makes Maria Santos special isn't just her technical skill, he wrote. It's her ability to find profound truth in music and share it with audiences in a way that touches their hearts. She represents the best of what American musical education can achieve. The article brought Maria national attention. Music lovers across the country were excited to hear about the teenage pianist who had gone from teaching herself on an old piano to performing with major orchestras. Finally, the night of the New York Philharmonic concert arrived. Maria and her family took the train from Queens to Manhattan dressed in their finest clothes. The concert was being held at David Geffen Hall at Lincoln Center, one of the most prestigious venues in the world. Backstage, Maria met the conductor, Maestro Williams, who had requested her for this performance. I've been looking forward to working with you, he said. Your recording from the conservatory concert was extraordinary. I know tonight will be equally special. Thank you for this opportunity, Maria replied. I can't believe I'm really here. Believe it, Maestro Williams said. You've earned this moment through your talent and hard work. The orchestra members were welcoming and supportive. Many of them had read about Maria's story and were excited to work with such a young, promising artist. Just remember, the concertmaster told her, we're all here to make beautiful music together. Trust your instincts and enjoy the experience. As Maria walked onto the stage that night, she looked out at an audience of 2,700 people. The hall was completely sold out, with people standing in the back because all the seats were taken. In the front row, she saw her family, Professor Chun, and many people from the conservatory who had supported her journey. The orchestra began the opening of the Rachmaninoff concerto, and Maria felt the familiar thrill of being surrounded by beautiful music. When her entrance arrived, she placed her hands on the keys of the magnificent Steinway and began to play. The music that poured forth was everything she had worked toward over the past year. It was technically perfect but also deeply emotional, showcasing both her skill and her artistic maturity. The orchestra supported her beautifully, creating a musical conversation that lifted both the soloists and the ensemble to new heights. During the slow movement, there wasn't a sound in the hall except for the music. Maria played with such tenderness and beauty that audience members were moved to tears. In the final movement, she displayed all the power and excitement that had made her conservatory performance so memorable. When the last notes faded, the audience erupted in the kind of ovation usually reserved for the world's greatest artists. People cheered and shouted, "Bravo!" for over 10 minutes. Maria took bow after bow, sharing the applause with Maestro Williams and the orchestra. After the concert, Maria was surrounded by well-wishers, critics, and music industry professionals. Record companies wanted to sign her. Concert halls wanted to book her for future performances. Music schools wanted to offer her even more prestigious opportunities. But in the middle of all the excitement, Maria found her parents. "How do you feel, Mia?" her mother asked. "Grateful," Maria replied. "Grateful for all the support you've given me. Grateful for the teachers who believed in me, and grateful that I get to share music with people." "What's next?" her father asked. "More concerts, more learning, more growing," Maria said. "But I'll never forget where I came from or the people who helped me get here." 5 years later, Maria Santos was indeed performing regularly with major orchestras around the world. She had recorded several acclaimed albums and won international piano competitions. Music critics called her one of the most exciting young pianists of her generation, but she never forgot the old piano in her family's restaurant. On quiet Sunday afternoons, when she was home visiting her family, she would still sit at that battered old instrument and play simple melodies, remembering the girl who had first discovered the magic of music in that small back room, the restaurant. Now displayed framed newspaper clippings about Maria's career, and a small plaque next to the piano read, "Here is where Maria Santos first learned to play piano. 2018 to 2021. Dreams have no limits." Young people from the neighborhood would sometimes come to the restaurant just to see the piano where a famous musician had gotten her start. Maria's parents would tell them Maria's story and encourage them to pursue their own dreams, no matter how impossible they might seem. "If you work hard and believe in yourself," Maria's mother would tell them, "you never know what you might achieve." Our Maria was just a regular girl who loved music. Look what she became. Maria's story became an inspiration to young musicians everywhere, proving that talent and determination could overcome any obstacle. She had shown that excellence didn't require privilege, only passion and the courage to pursue it.